The intent today was to kind of present a little bit of the Sheridan College journey. And as you can imagine, as I thought through this presentation, it's sometimes very difficult to summarize all the various paths that are created in putting together a strategy that leads to somewhere. So I hope I've done it justice. What we'll do today is kind of talk a little bit about Sheridan College, but just it'll provide a little bit of context to establish who we are and what our roots are. And then I'll delve into something that I think is very important in the area of building sustainability strategy, and that is context and making sure that we start with the right foundations. Then I talk a little bit about building the living laboratory. So in the post-secondary institutions, we are all working on our campuses, and we have this vast opportunity to create campuses that become living for our faculty and students to participate in. Very briefly, certainly in 20 minutes we can't cover everything, but I'd like to really touch on the importance of now moving beyond a singular definition of what sustainability is and really delve into the science, which adds to the credibility of what applied sustainability really is. And then we'll talk about Mission Zero, how we got there, some of the big foundational pieces, and then I've got a really important question for all of us to kind of leave off with on that. So Sheridan College was first established actually 40 years ago in 1967, and it first started as a school of graphic design. In the 60s and 70s, the Canadian animation industry was virtually non-existent, except for some expertise that existed in the National Film Board. So it's safe to say that Sheridan launched a program where no market really existed at that time, and since then the school has won 2 Academy Awards, 5 nominations, 1 Emmy Award, and many of our graduates hold key positions in major studios. So there's no question that our foundations are grounded in animation design and our creative campus strategy, which was launched in 2010. We accommodate close to 35,000 full-time and part-time students across 3 campuses, and we have 6 faculties. And we are definitely in a transformational period right now to establish Sheridan University, which is a university which will be entirely dedicated to undergraduate, applied teaching, and applied studies. And to achieve that vision, we've taken an important approach to embedding creativity across all of our facets, across all facets of our curriculum, so that it really and truly becomes the hallmark of who Sheridan is and what a Sheridan education will be. So that's a little bit about our roots and our foundations. The reason I created a context slide with respect to building sustainability strategy is because one of the things we have learned over the last 3 to 5 years is how incredibly important to the success of our strategies in the post-secondary institution context really is. So and understanding how dramatically this sector will change over the next decade will highly influence how it is that you guide sustainability in your sector. So in a sense, I began my personal journey here really knowing quite a bit about sustainability, but relatively nothing about the sector. So the most important step for me personally in this journey was to try and bring together the big contextual pieces to build what some of us would describe really as our current reality. The biggest learning here was that to be successful, a sustainability initiative needed to start very broadly, understand the economic realities of the decade ahead, and build a program based on these. So our big assumptions at Sheridan moving forward was that really there's no question this sector will change dramatically, and two big concepts were very clear. Our current models are unsustainable, and I mean this financially, socially, and environmentally, and there are two underlying societal demands that continue to grow. First, greater access of education, and that's critical for us to understand that there's been a 36% increase in enrollment in Ontario post-secondary institutions since 2003, and the goal is to raise this to 70% by 2020. And second, there's clearly a need for new kinds of knowledge, new kinds of vehicles that will produce different kinds of knowledge as we move forward. Secondly, economic realities, we're dealing with shrinking budgets and mandatory reporting. So as practitioners, we really needed to understand and play into an entirely new economic reality, understanding the opportunities that were presented through mandatory reporting, as many of you are already in line with, and fully being able to articulate the value within shrinking operational budgets. Those are the two big cornerstone items. So while the 2012 Drummond report in Ontario focused very much on the existing realities here in Ontario, they're the same across the country, in the United States. Basically, we need to sharpen the efficiency of literally everything we do so that Canadians get greater value for their money. But to put that into context, Ontario has the lowest per student operating grants in the country, and institutional costs are increasing by 3 to 5 times a year. So in one sense, the saleability of your sustainability strategy must recognize and properly articulate the new realities, or you've designed a plan that won't move an institution. If we don't anticipate the profound effects of this new kind of reality, we really, and the reality on institutional finances, we really will not have a sustainability program to move forward with. Finally, a couple of items. Another big reality for us is that the post-secondary sector is central to low-carbon economic growth and skill sets. 2/3 of all new jobs are expected to require post-secondary education. All provinces will rely considerably on this sector for growth and competitiveness. And the reality is that colleges and universities will require different kinds of engagement strategies, and I see this as an opportunity, placing sustainability, climate, energy, carbon reduction in really a central position for the first time, aligning with productivity, innovation, and skill set development. So that was the context through which we built foundations for our plan, and I refer to it many, many times, but if we build sustainability strategies without that context, we are piecemealing these strategies and hoping that somebody will buy in. We need to align with that reality. So foundations. You know, some of this sounds very simple, but it is so critical. You know, at the heart of any strong sustainability plan, we need to create trusting environments to build engagement. So operationally, it can take weeks, but building bridges between operations and academia can take years. So trust is central, and as is credibility. And being open to all ideas is absolutely critical to progress. Credibility, many of us in this sector now clearly understand that word. We have seen many programs fall apart, in large part because we are not grounded either in science or in the proper data. So any program that does not do its research is risking public money and increasing institutional risk as the budgets begin to start to increase. It really is that simple. So we did our homework, and no matter what initiatives we built on, we made sure we had data that was readily available to back up what it is that we were trying to move forward. This third item around creating the space for off-the-wall ideas is really a creativity idea, and many of us have learned to do and employ this kind of tactic, but it really is foundational for us, given our creativity background. We do kind of force that space to happen where anybody can come in. And the example that I use all the time is that if you create the space to really discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly, what we have found was that just saying the ugly prompted a new line of thinking, which in our case ultimately led us to the development of a 20-year integrated energy and carbon plan, which just recently was very successful in moving to approval. So someone simply asked, and this really is as a result of our connection with the natural step, what does a sustainable post-secondary energy system look like? And when you approach a problem from that kind of future state, you tend to create a different kind of vision and different kinds of creativity to move you forward. The other thing we did is we employed a lot of the talent we have in our school, but this kind of talent is everywhere, right? It's across all sectors, across all of our schools. So what you're seeing right now is actually a representation of a storyboard that that began to connect where we were going. That ultimately resulted in a communication speech, which I will show you in the end. But ultimately, we are, and I personally am very interested in learning more about how it is we communicate for change. And storyboarding just became a fabulous way. This particular storyboard was created by Angela Ioroki from our Faculty of Arts, Animation and Design, and it just has become a fabulous way for us to interpret and communicate complex problems and issues. The next, big foundational item around our sustainability strategy has really been around communicating and creating big goals that motivate change. So John Elkington describes 5 stepping stones in his Pathways to Zero model. I don't know how many people are familiar with that, but it's a fantastic model which we have employed and embedded within our own programs. But it's a model that's really helped us understand and communicate where we were within a sustainability continuum. And you know, while as practitioners we think we know where we are, but as an institution, when you're communicating where you are, it's there's a real aha moment that happens when you take a look at that. So it's a model that moves institutions from really breakthrough insights all the way to transformation, where we become better and better at seeing our impacts, and this becomes a core element in our decision making. And so what we all have learned is that moving from one stage of innovation to another is not guaranteed. And we have seen this internally as well. And establishing a trajectory moving forward has a cost in time, effort, risk, and investment. And it's really critical to understand the linkages between each of these every step that we move through this model. These can grow exponentially if organizational structures don't align and evolve accordingly with your plan. And so sometimes you have to know when to not go, and sometimes you have to know when to move forward aggressively. And part of that is really understanding that model. So that was very helpful for us. The other very helpful, and this is many of you that are familiar with the natural step model will recognize this backcasting a slide, which we have slightly adapted for us. But our process took definitely a different approach in its design. Rather than using a forecasting approach, which tended to present a more limited range of options for us when we were designing a strategy, since all we were doing was really projecting the problems we had today forward, we established a backcasting approach to one of our, definitely to some of our biggest programs, because it favored a methodology and it increased the level of creativity that that we never could have gotten starting a process through a forecasting methodology. So it allowed us really to employ various scenarios in planning, and we benefited obviously from a whole systems approach when we were trying to problem solve, as you can see there, you know, from current reality moving forward. Now, all of these are really nice diagrams, but certainly don't misinterpret the backcasting as just a fun, creative process. We clearly, if we go back to this slide, needed to start at present-day baseline analysis. And so I show this slide not to confuse people, but just to show, not to misinterpret, the backcasting is kind of just a creative process. It is all of that, but it is also steeped in a very rigorous baselining exercise, which is absolutely critical to the creative process moving forward. Our facilities and energy teams, you know, have a tremendous amount of data collected now to enable that creative process to happen. And as they say, if you don't know where you're going, all roads lead to nowhere. So that, I mean, every one of our buildings across the institution was measured and modeled, providing a strong foundation in order to build those pathways. Another big area for us to move forward was really and as I said, this is one of my personal, I'm hugely interested in this whole area of how we communicate sustainability. Many of us are familiar with frameworks and various tools that we employ, but I do think that this is really the new frontier around sustainability. And so what you're looking at right here is extracted from our Mission Zero Style Guide, which was created by two incredibly talented people from our Faculty Arts and Animation and Design through our our Mission Zero style guide. But it's really what we're really at the beginning stages of developing a language of symbols, if you will, which might help simplify actions and impacts. So we're very, very early stages. However, the feedback has been very positive. And as we start to measure behavior change, it'll be very interesting to see how this new symbolic language, if you will actually be able to move us forward. So the style guide, for instance, will show us picture styles, resolutions, symbol uses, so that we can use them to encourage behavior such as, right? So a water drop, obviously, we use in different formats with black and white pictures. And while it's not pervasive across all of our programs yet, we're definitely moving towards using symbols to be able to readily communicate behavior change and understand impacts a little bit better. I use this as an example because this is a classic internal story which I wanted to share with many of you. A couple of years ago, 2 students told us that in 1 year we consumed 25 million sheets of paper. And you would think that that in itself would motivate change. Through our President's Creative Challenge in 2012. However, it really wasn't until they were able to tell us that 25 million sheets of paper is in fact 4 times the height of the CN Tower that we we initiated basically or established a 10 million sheet reduction which is going on as we speak between 2014 and 2015. So it just goes to show you we have the same data, but when you visually can show something like this, and just to be really clear, as an applied college, that number was actually lower than the average college, college and university, and it could be because we're an applied college. But the point that I'm making is that it wasn't until we put a locally based image of something that everybody could relate to beside a stack of 25 million that action was taken. So I kind of raise that just as an interesting kind of process that we've gone through ourselves. So this screen looks a little crazy, but one of the next big concept is something I referred to at the beginning, really talking about building living laboratories, which is really bringing together all these big bubbles of research, operations, curriculum, and engagement together. We're absolutely and clearly not there yet, nor do I think any one particular school is there, but the idea would be to try and bring these pieces together to be able to share knowledge in a circular pattern. It is a big foundation for our school. In fact, our plan, our 20-year plan, is very much based on the integration of all of these pieces coming together. Those of you that are familiar with ASHE will see many of the language from the STARS assessment on both sides. So they become kind of the big assessment pieces. But how all of these come together, I don't think there's any one model that currently exists that is the best. I think that all of these models are evolving, but they are very important to moving the strategy beyond just our buildings. I put this slide up all the time, and but I really believe in what it says. A large part of a sustainability case now needs to evolve towards proving the business case, the ROI, and using a stick approach, which is really highlighting the risks as we transition to more sustainable and across all sectors. This is clearly not post-secondary. In fact, this whole presentation is not really just about post-secondary. This exists in any corporation. Nothing does more for your case than building the case itself and clearly and credibly articulating the long-term risks for the organization. The next big frontier, and I think we should be very confident as we move forward, whether it is because we are an applied college or not, we gravitated to the science. And so the natural step principles for us, to a certain degree, became very easy for us to understand. And on some level, while the institution and the formulation of new solutions is very complex, the principles themselves were quite simple for us to begin to rally around a shared vision. So for us, our applied definition is really the application of science and innovation to meet human need while indefinitely preserving life support systems of the planet. So many of us listening to this have already pulled together. You've got Brundtland and you've got science, and we're now pulling them together in one defined state, if you will. So visually, what we really have formulated is a frame, and if you look inside that frame, that's how we develop our applied solutions, and they are within scientific boundaries. On the right-hand side, you'll see the natural step, the 4 principles, and certainly what Pong helped us with several years ago was really looking at how is it that we reduce our dependence to fossil fuels? How is it that we start substituting on natural compounds? All of the things that many of us are doing right now, this just helped us frame the equation better. So Mission Zero, it is a 20-year plan which was third-party validated last month, actually, and approved moving forward. It integrates, it is a sustainability platform that integrates energy, carbon, water, waste, and behavior change into a single, united, interconnected platform. And we've got 3 quantitative goals and 5 qualitative goals. 3 of them very clearly establishing what our long-term, what the goals are by 2030 around energy reduction, carbon reduction. And I think the unique opportunity for us is that we preconceived ahead of the project what we were comfortable with in terms of an internal rate of return. And that became a catalyst for us, because if we could, in fact, design a technical and investment plan that could stay within a rate of return that a public institution could live with, and actually, in our case, more than live with, because we significantly went over what was first communicated to us, that really became the catalyst for Mission Zero. The 5 qualitative goals were really to create a campus-wide energy culture, to become a new platform for energy technologies, and I think the most significant one was really to offer competitive energy and climate-related curricula as we move forward, which is really how we built the living laboratory, meaning if we were in fact going to offer that kind of curriculum, we needed to become a platform for faculty and students to work. So many of you may recognize this slide, but I mean, we're all on this journey together. It's a step-by-step process, and many of us, and we don't all evolve in the same way. I think the key here is to find the culture that you're in and build on what you do best, because that is what differentiates you. If we come in with the same kinds of stories and same kinds of frameworks, generally speaking, all we're doing is we're replicating, and what works in one school really will not necessarily work somewhere else. So there we are. We're still kind of moving up that mountain. We've made a very significant shift this year, clearly, and we are beginning to build those big bridges between the curriculum side and the academic side and the operations side. But still a very long ways to go. And my hope certainly will be to be working with as many people, draw as many ideas as we can to keep building. So just very quickly, I thought if I would leave off with a quick video and a question. The video is no more than 1.5 minutes.
What will it take to get to zero? We are on a mission to transform everything we do, teach, discuss, make, research, and learn. It's time to invent the future where creativity and sustainability come together. Sheridan can lead the way by setting bold goals. You are an essential part of transforming a generation and an institution. Join the many people already involved in Mission Zero.
To me, sustainability isn't just about protecting the environment. It's really about considering who inhabits the planet, and that would be the human population that really is going to benefit from sustainable actions. If you're recycling at home, why should that stop when you're at Sheridan? Just being conscious about what you're doing at Sheridan, just sort of taking advantage of your place within the system and also trying to further spread the word for sustainability.
Look at the possibilities for what we can do. Are you ready to plan, write, calculate, sing, draw, and design our way to zero?
It's all about setting the example.
It's happening now. It's radical. It will be a challenge, but together we will get to zero.
Okay, so you know, that's just it brings home to a certain degree. I guess if there's one thing that I'd love to be able to bring home to everybody is this whole idea of keeping it simple. As we move forward, it is such a complex, convoluted path to get from A to B to C. But certainly a big part of our learning has been incredible. And carbon and waste and water. What if we get our buildings right and our teaching and learning wrong? So I'd like to leave that with everybody. It's a big question, and I'm going to turn it back over to Pong.
I'm muted.
Thank you very much, Elaine. That was great. That was the first time I'd seen the Mission Zero video. It's incredible. So thank you very much for that. So we're going to open up the floor to everyone online here to either comment on the question that Elaine posed. What if we get our buildings right and our teaching and learning wrong, and/or to pose a question or to share some comments around the Sheridan sustainability story, or whatever is useful for your own story that you're creating at your own institutions. So I'm just going to turn it over quickly to Tyler to give us some instructions about how we're going to moderate this online, and then he'll help us identify a few folks that to share their questions via their mic. Okay. So Tyler, I'll turn it over to you. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Thanks.
All right. So basically, there's a chat box to the right of your screen there. You can enter your questions in the chat box, and then in order I will open up your microphone and you can ask the question directly to Elaine or Pong. And if you have any trouble entering your question in the chat box, just hit the hand raising button.
So Tyler, maybe as people are thinking, I can throw in one question that I had, and just to kind of get the ball rolling a bit. So Elaine, could you? I noticed a couple of times there was the President's Creative Challenge for Sustainability.
Yes.
Could you just speak a little bit about how that evolved and what it's been the sort of the benefits or the results of doing that challenge? It seems like it was a really interesting sort of inflection point in the process.
Is anybody hearing feedback? I'm hearing a little bit. Several years ago, our provost, Mary Priest, asked me to kind of reflect on what a President's Creative Challenge around sustainability would look like. And it took some time to kind of try and figure out what the parameters of that kind of a challenge would be. And but it was a tremendous undertaking for us. We ended up having some very strong student submissions. We ended up picking 5 winners. And students this was the first time we had tried this, but it became the first time that students, operations, academic faculty began to work together around some of the big outside challenges. So we had some winners that worked around water issues, some winners that worked around, for instance, we discussed the paper strategy, so a lot of work went into that. But students were given free access, basically, once they had, scoped out their project, to actually work with staff to get as much data as they could to start formulating, answers to their own questions. But it was huge culture building and very interesting exercise. And to be very honest, we reaped the benefits of it because, 2 or 3 out of the 5 projects were actually implemented in-house.
Excellent. Thank you, Elaine.
Great. Thanks, Elaine.
So our first question is going to come from Lynn Ferguson. So Lynn, I'm going to open up your microphone. Hello, Lynn?
Yeah, hello. So mine's really a comment, an interpretation perhaps of your question about getting the buildings right and the teaching and learning wrong. I would suggest that that truly is a risk, that it could potentially appear that you're not really authentically believing in sustainability, that in fact it's really just the cost savings that you're looking for, and that could be an ugly PR situation and lose the trust of your student base if that's how it was seen.
It's Lynn, right?
Yes.
Lynn, thank you very much for that. And you know, I tend to agree with you on that. Part of the question is slightly rhetorical and from that perspective, but you're right, and that is why I'm kind of bringing it out. We spend a tremendous amount of time, obviously, on the efficiency side of the sustainability equation, and don't get me wrong, it's a incredibly important aspect of building a long-term sustainability plan, meaning efficiency has to be part of a full-scale plan. But at the same time, I think, and you've correctly pointed out here, if we do not translate this knowledge, this kind of moving to zero, this carbon reduction, if we don't clearly persevere on the climate issue, and we don't bring in a sense of urgency that translates into our teaching and learning, then all we've done is save money. So you're absolutely correct there.
And there's an opportunity there if you're in fact being leaders in this by having your Mission Zero program to bring along students who would be interested in sustainability and make that a core part of your offering.
Absolutely, yes.
I did have one other comment. Can I perhaps throw it in while we're here?
Oh, sure.
I was a little surprised to hear you call the program Mission Zero.
Okay.
My understanding was that was actually a trademarked program name that Interface used.
Well, then I do apologize, and maybe we'll have to change it. When we very casually ran it by them, it was something that we thought, I mean, it's something we can look into. Mission Zero is a mission to zero, and to a certain degree it came out of John Elkington's book, The Zero Knots. And that's kind of where the original name came from, but it's certainly something that we should, thank you for bringing it up, when we'll have to look it up and find out if we're on the right side or on the wrong side of things.
Great.
Thank you.
Hello, all right, so our next question is going to come from Trina Innes. So Trina, I'm opening up your microphone now. Hello, Trina? All right, if we can't hear Trina, then I will ask Trina's question for her.
Okay.
So Trina asks, engaging the attention of senior leaders is quite challenging. So what techniques are you using?
Yes, it is, and all of us have been there, and you know, I'm very familiar with some of the great work that's happening at the University of Alberta, the work that Trina's under her leadership. It is, every institution has a different structure, and I guess I'll start there. And every institution gravitates to different ways of moving forward, and that's why I really began with that contextual piece, because I keep gravitating to it, and I can absolutely say that we have been successful because we fully are cognizant of the politics and the economic realities that we're about to move into. So how have we been successful in engaging? To be very honest, one of the biggest things we've done is really thought through our work. And I started off, we were just talking about efficiencies. We did absolutely start our program on the efficiency side. And you know, and it has been and that is translating. So the efficiency discussion with a CFO will always work if you're grounded, if you're grounded with research, if you've done your homework. And then that begins to trickle into a different conversation on the teaching and learning and the academic side of the house. Certainly in our case, one of the biggest things that made this program successful was really the width and the breadth of the proposal. So if we could come in fact talk about 50% reductions on energy and 50% reductions on carbon within a return on investment that a CFO would find acceptable, that was the beginning of that engagement. So that's where it started. Once you could prove that case, that then opened up doors on the academic side, on the student services side, because you now have a plan. You've got some bones, you've got a structure to be able to, you've got something to talk about that's very concrete. I hope that helps, Trina. But that definitely, you know, you have to create a plan that has legs and shows the value and the return as you move forward. And within that plan, you have to highlight the risks of doing nothing, but basically staying where you are. And those are very significant as we look forward.
Thank you very much. Oh, Trina replies, "This helps. Gives me an idea on how to position our way of moving forward. Setting absolute targets is a real challenge in her world, and she thinks that taking a risk management approach is her next step."
You know, and I think that is the way to go. And just recently, in having a conversation with several people, there are many of us sustainability practitioners that have been talking about opportunities for a very, very long time. I think the table has turned a little bit, and I think there is definite value. Certainly what I'm seeing is there's definitely value in beginning to point out the risks involved in inaction. And certainly, you know, in a 20-year plan, those scenarios do not look very good if an institution does not look out and actually start calculating those risks.
Excellent, thank you. So our next question is going to come from Emma Savage. So Emma, I'm opening up your line. Hello, Emma. All right, and we can't hear from Emma right now, but I will ask her a question for her. So Emma says that Elaine leaves us with a key question. What does correct teaching and learning look like? How and what learning outcomes are being measured?
That is a great question, Emma, and I'm glad you asked, because I don't know how many people have that answer. I think, to be very honest, we are formulating this. There's no question. I'm not sure what context you're asking that in, whether you're faculty or you're a sustainability practitioner or both, maybe. But there is a framework established through, and we are very strong supporters of the ASHE STARS and the new framework that's coming out this month, the STARS 2.0 framework. And that begins to lead us through what is sustainability in curriculum. But the question you asked, however, is evolving, and I don't think there is one answer to any of this. What we will see, however, and we're already seeing it internally here, is we will gravitate towards a multidisciplinary approach, and that is one of the most, has been up until now. Academic structures have truly not evolved in 100 years, and I don't mean this as a criticism. It's just that we've been somewhat siloed in our structures. What sustainability does is really bring major outside and urgent challenges to the picture that now force each siloed faculty to in fact work together to solve these large-scale sustainability challenges around food, around transportation, around reductions, around social and around poverty, et cetera, et cetera. So in a sense, it becomes just a huge creative opportunity for our people building curriculum. So I don't think any of those answers have been fully, but you know, we're in that process of innovation. What I do know is that the people that are first at starting to discover what that new curriculum looks like will definitely create the partnerships, the collaboration, and the engagement that are happening outside all of our doors right now. Because those are, in fact, the new skill sets that will play into, we oftentimes talk about creative economy and all kinds of other things. At the end of the day, what we're talking about is a low carbon economy. And those are the skill sets, and we will require new kinds of so I think ASHE is a first step towards that, and it's evolving.
Thank you very much, Elaine. So we're going to cut the questions there, but if you want to stay on the line after, we can stay on the line a little bit after. We're going to now go to a quick evaluation poll to ask how you found the session. And as you answer, I'll just turn this back over to Pong.
Great. Thank you very much, Tyler. Let's give a few more seconds for, we're at 78% voted. Give a few more seconds for the other 22%. Okay. All right, so thank you very much, everyone. Oh, Tyler, maybe you might want to mute your mic there. We're getting some feedback from your microphone. So thank you very much. Like Tyler mentioned, NFLA is okay with it. We can stay on the line to take a few more questions, but I just want to honor the 1 hour time period that we had to wrap this up. So thank you very much for filling the poll. That's useful information for us to continually improve the usefulness and utility of these webinars. So if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about the natural step, you'll hear some thoughts and suggestions from us. Please try out our 1 hour e-learning course, and there's a link there. We'll send out these slides afterwards, but there's a link there just on our website, www.naturalstep.ca/e-learning. Please explore our website to learn about further case studies like the story of Sheridan and other organizations that we work with. And if you would like to talk to us, of course, we are happy to do that. So there's an info@naturalstep.ca account for general inquiries, and it's down here as well. Or please feel free to give us a call or to reach out to Tyler and myself. So thank you. That's all. If you please stick around if you have additional questions, and if Elaine could give us a bit more of her time, we can take on those questions. But for everyone else that has to run off to do something else, thank you very much for joining us, and we really appreciate it. And thank you very much once again to Elaine for her tireless, inspiring work at Sheridan and her contribution today. So thank you very much, Elaine. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mom, and thanks for having me, and I'll be happy to stay a couple of extra minutes.
Okay, Tyler, did you maybe just kind of run through the next couple of questions if people have them and see if they're still online.
Sure thing. Sure thing. So let's see if Bruno is still on the line.
Hi.
Hello, Bruno?
Hello. So I'm from Brazil, and I was thinking very much about the creativity part of the Mission Zero program, as it's showing using music and asking us to sing and draw and everything. I particularly believe in that too, that art is one of the most incredible ways of teaching. So I just would like to know in more detail how is the creativity part of the Mission Zero program being worked by the college. If you could explain that, besides the storyboard that you explained, which is really interesting.
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't catch because there was some feedback. What? I'm sorry, I didn't catch your first name.
Bruno. Probably is my accent is still confusing, but I just would like to know in more detail.
Yeah, Bruno. I got the question. I love the accent. But, yeah, so creativity. I'm glad you asked the question. It's we clearly are moving into obviously a world where we require different kind of divergent thinking when in trying to answer and solve some of these quite enormous long-term challenges that are facing municipalities, corporations. And so as a creativity school, as a school that really has been rooted in a lot of creativity over the last 40 years, we've established a relationship with Buffalo, with the International Center for Studies in Creativity in Buffalo, New York. And so we have gone beyond just talking about creativity, but it becomes really a hallmark. It's one of these subjects that will be embedded across all of our curriculum. And obviously the belief is that that will create new kinds of students, new kinds of creative processes, new kinds of ways of solving solutions, and it employs both divergent and convergent thinking. So there's a long, I would ask you to explore, go to their website. There's one particular book written, it's called Creativity Rising, Creative Thinking and Creative Problem Solving in the 21st Century. And, but for us, it really has become and is our mantra as we kind of emerge and become a university. It'll become a big part of our problem solving. What was interesting for me as a sustainability practitioner was how many of the creativity, how you teach creativity, how much of it could be used in the design of sustainability programs.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking the question.
All right, we've got another question here from Graham Aikenhead. Graham, you're on the line.
Hi there.
Hi.
Yeah, so my question is more related to how to actually, I'm doing some sort of assessments with industrial facilities in terms of environmental performance. And I guess my challenge is always when I go into a facility is how to convince an organization of the value of the baseline assessment or the data collection side of things. Because there's always a chicken and egg situation where you need resources in order to develop your business case, to subsequently obtain resources to carry out your strategy. So
Right.
I guess one of my questions is that what are some of the techniques maybe used to kind of develop an understanding of the value of that data collection?
Right. Well, it's a loaded question. How would I approach that? On one level, any organization today that is trying to make change will know that at some point they're going to have to establish where they are today. Right? So on one level, if an organization is not ready, they may just not be ready if they're asking those kinds of questions. How to trigger that may be to in fact show that, to begin to talk to them about what do you want to be, where do you want to go, so that they can kind of coalesce around a shared vision, around something that they actually want to do within their sector, within their organization. Then what that happens is generally the next question is, how do we do this? And that's then when normally a baselining exercise would happen. That may be another approach, which is to really kind of talk about, a shared vision approach to try and understand. In our case, for instance, I'll give you a great example. We wanted to understand what a sustainable energy system would look like within a post-secondary institution. So we didn't first go to baselining. We first had to capture people's imaginations about what we wanted to be 20 years from now, in order for that to prompt the next question, which is, well, where are we today? So I guess my advice would be, some organizations may not be ready for that conversation, but if they are, a good place to start would be kind of a future desired state, and honing in on that first.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Thank you. And I've got one more question here. It comes from John Kozak, and I'll have to ask it for him. So he says that on the website for Mission Zero,
yeah,
it says that Sheridan campuses will be dumpster-free by 2016. So does this include individual bins, and how do you see that as an issue even with things as simple as smokers around campus?
Oh, yeah, so yes, we have set a target. So our first, how we've approached this is, in fact, this month we are rolling out our organics program for the first time. So in what we were able to do, the last 2 years has been spent on data collection, and what we were able to find out is that anywhere between 50 and 55% of all of the waste we produce is organic material. And so one of the things we're doing today is actually taking all of this organic produce out of the waste stream, which, as you can imagine, you're now taking out 50% of the waste going in your overall bulk waste. So the intent is for us to obviously move away from dumpsters as we move forward. So that's the goal we set. We believe that we are on a path. Everything evolves. We're learning. Again, this is the first step towards taking 50% of our organics out. We're hoping to compost on site sometime next year. But that's the goal. That is where we're trying to go. We have facilities on board, and we're trying to.
Great. Well, I guess that's all of our questions for now.
Okay, great. Well, I think we can probably wrap this up.